Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So it's been a little while and my last video was actually a sketchbook tour and I received a lot of lovely comments from you guys and a lot of new subs, so thank you so much, welcome. So for today I wanted to show you the process of this piece using alcohol markers. This piece will also be the patron postcard for September, so today is the final day. If you would like to receive this postcard, you can still pledge if you're interested. My timing isn't great, but I do hope to soon maybe have like a patron shop, so maybe past rewards can be available there. I'd like to try and keep the designs I make for patron exclusive, so they won't be in my Etsy shop. But maybe if there's like a patron shop, you can get past rewards or maybe bigger prints and stuff like that. So for this piece, I'm working in my Ohuhu Marker Pad. It's a really chunky, thick sketchbook with really smooth paper. I think they work lovely with alcohol-based markers. The paper kind of reminds me of Bristol board, which was my favorite paper to use markers on. It also comes with a silicone sheet, which you can put behind the page you're working on so it doesn't bleed through. So I had my sketch and I outlined it with a Fineliner. For this one I'm using the Copic Multiliner in the color wine, which is my favorite color. When I use black I often use the Micron pens, I really like those too, but I just really love this wine color. Either I use this wine color Fineliner or I mix my own acrylic inks and do line art that way. It just really works with the color palettes that I like to use. This is one of my favorites. As for the markers, I'm using a mixture of different brands. I just have a bunch of different ones that I've collected over the years, and some are brush markers and some are bullet nibs. I feel with markers in general, it's like the more the merrier. I think it's like very handy to have a lot of shades and hues and tints and stuff, so you can just get every color variation that you want in your work. For me, I really like to use the light colors together with darker muted colors, and so the very vibrant ones often get a bit unused, I guess. I mean, some people can do everything with a chisel nib and it looks really nice and there's a gradient and stuff, and they're really good at that. Others have more cel shaded styles or just use like blocks of colors and it looks really good. For my style, and especially how I like to color skin, I just prefer the brush nib and maybe a couple of different colors so I can make my own gradients, and that works the best for me, but that means like investing in a lot of colors. It's also good to start light because if you have a darker color and you layer it a couple of times, it will like get increasingly dark. So you often end up with a color that's much darker than you intended. So what I've started to do is I swatch out my markers beforehand, but I also do multiple layers on one half so I can see like if I layer it a couple of times how dark it will get. Okay, so now back to the piece. So before I started coloring, I took a picture of the line art and I planned the colors digitally. I use Procreate on my tablet, and I also keep a piece of scrap paper that's off camera. I always test the colors to see how they look next to each other, and if I know I'm going to layer colors, I will test them out too, because some colors don't like to play nice, like they don't layer very well. Sometimes you will get a blotchy texture and sometimes others are fine to layer, so I typically test that out first. For the way I color skin is probably the reason why I prefer the brush markers, because I start from an area of shadow. So for instance, take the hairline. I start my mark there on the hairline and then flick it towards the cheek. So the cheek will end up being lighter this way because it isn't catching the full weight of my mark with ink. The cheek catches more light, so this way there's a bit of a gradient. The cheek is supposed to be a little bit lighter. So I do the same for other parts of the face. So her eyes are deeper set, so I take the deepest corner of her eye, and along the nose I will start my mark there and then flick it towards areas that are supposed to be lighter, and hopefully try to keep some of the highlights in the skin that way. I tried the same on the collarbone and on the cleavage area. I'm actually also using the colorless blender. I wanted that area to remain very light because obviously like the breasts are out there and they catch the light and they need to be lighter than the paleness of the skin. So using the colorless blender as my lightest light, it kind of blends and smoothens things out there. This doesn't really work with darker colors, so if you have a darker color, you would probably blend with a lighter shade or a lighter tint of the color you're using. In this case, it makes sense because it's like you have a purple, you have a pale purple, and you have a nearly like the white of the paper this way. Other than that, I use the colorless blender just to erase marks outside of lines. I don't think it's as useful as the name suggests, like it doesn't blend everything. But just like for the palest colors, for the lightest colors, it seems to work fine for me. At this stage, I just go over the shadow areas a bunch of times with different purples and pinks. I noticed that once the ink dries, it's lighter than I figured when I put it down, so I keep having to go back with my markers to deepen the shadows, and I think at this point I should have just gone a bit darker with my shadows to begin with, because there's a little bit of a shift between still wet marker and dry. In the final stages, I always use some pencils and either a gel pen or a Posca marker. This pencil, the Caran Luminance pencil, I think is really great. I use that one for soft highlights and blends, so around the eye area or on the nose or just places that need a soft highlight. And then for the harsher highlights, I will use a Posca Pen. So the reflection in her eye or on her hair, or maybe some highlighted areas of the skin like on the shoulders and stuff. The other color pencils I will use in the shadow areas and for blush. So around the eyes, there's also more shadow, but I also use it as some sort of eyeshadow type of makeup effect. Also like on the lips and just some shadow areas, I like to use the color pencils there. It just makes the shaded areas a bit more deep. It's something that I can't really achieve with the markers, and the color pencils just give it a final push. So my favorite pencils to do this with are the Colerase pencils, especially the color Rose and Tuscan Red, and in this case also Purple and Lavender. They just seem to blend very well with a paper blender, and the rose color just matches every skin tone basically so far. So anyway, I colored the dress and I already knew I didn't like the color, but there was something else that was off, so I was just looking to see like what is it that I want to change. So at this point I snapped another picture and did another color test, and so I felt that the blue lines in the background, the swirls, they actually needed to be pink. And fortunately I have this old Posca Pen marker in pink. It saved me a couple of times this way, and it kind of matched the bottom swirls of the pink. So I took 2 coats of the pink to cover the blue, and yeah, I think that looks much better. So for the dress, I knew I wanted something else. I actually wanted to be a bit more like reddish purple, so that was the final color. I'm also using some Polychromos pencils. So there's this blue color that I really like. I think it's Light Ultramarine, so I use it for the hair here, but I think it's also a color that's really nice to create some cooler shadows with. And that wraps it up. So thank you so much for watching. I'll leave the materials and the links and stuff, I'll leave it in the description box below. So I really hope to see you next time. And yeah, see you then. Bye.